Welcome to episode 9. Here we are. I'm going to get Nick to introduce our special guest.
Well, permanent guest maybe now. I mean, if you want to.
True.
Not even a guest anymore. Your dog's peed on me already.
Yeah.
So we've got our new coach here. If you guys didn't see already, we have Kiefer Lammi, who, not to be confused with your first name being or your last name being Kiefer, which some people have assumed.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
He goes by Kiefer as the first name.
What did Taylor say? She goes, I just thought his first name wasn't important. I thought Kiefer was the last.
It's a last name guy.
All business. That guy.
But yeah, Kiefer is going to be our brand new coach, which is awesome. Obviously, we keep elevating the level of our coaches, which is one of our biggest goals this year. We've talked about that plenty of times. Kiefer comes with a whole host of athletes, which is awesome, and I would say probably your most successful career year as of date. Can I say that?
Yeah,
is that
for
accurate?
Sure. Yeah, we came in with big expectations this year, and I would say that it's as much as I could have hoped for the most part.
I think for as small as the space is, oddly enough, we've never really been around you before this year, which has been cool. Had you guys met much before this?
Seen them around the traps, but I think we've just been locked in on the event, right? Or did we?
It's not really like a mingler most of the time.
But I wouldn't, and not in a bad way, I hope. Or is it?
No.
Okay.
No, I just think you're there for business. Everybody's there for business. I think there's a tendency towards like staying within your group and your camp, and then there's a little bits of mingling that happens. But
Yeah. No, I would. That's probably a fair. Like, I think that in competitions, I seem to just stay where I'm needed.
Yeah, and you're mostly been a West Coast guy.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to semifinals and such, and you haven't been to a semifinal in West yet.
Only the Vegas event.
Way back.
a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And that was
Way back.
before I was
Yeah.
like hands-on involved as
Dang.
much.
Is that technically sanctionals?
No, it was semifinal.
Semifinals?
That was first year semifinal? I think it was.
I feel like this conversation comes up every podcast. We don't know what the season structure is.
Yeah. I mean, well, I think especially with semifinals, I'm just staying engaged with our athletes because I don't think it's ever like a smooth sailing. So it's almost you just got to jump from one heat to the next and bounce through there.
For sure.
I think what I'm trying to do is double down the reason why I've been standoffish.
Yeah. Do you feel like I attacked you?
A little bit, like in the first 5 minutes. Well, you got me thinking anyway, which is good.
I said, "Hey, you're focused. There are things we can all take from
You
those
just brain
things."
scrambled him for the next 40 minutes.
Yeah.
That's good. He's rattled. You also should know that wearing black and navy together is like one of my biggest pet peeves, which I'm also doing today. But
Wow.
nobody can see my pants.
I'm matching you. Yeah.
No one could see his pants either, and you just outed him.
Dang.
We're off to a rough start right
Yeah,
now.
but the more that I can deflect away from myself, the better this will go for me.
Yeah. Okay.
So this year, you went to how many semifinals? Did you go to West for sure?
I went to Europe. I went to
Yeah,
West,
you went
and
to
then I
Europe.
was at East, mostly, honestly, to like, I told Kyra I was there more than anything to be a fan for a week because I felt like the first 2 weeks I was so deep in the trenches behind the scenes that I didn't get to enjoy it. And obviously it was an opportunity for us to connect more. I was supporting another athlete that was coached by a good friend of mine, but it was just a chance to like watch more of what was going on at the semifinals with zero stress related to it, which is nice.
which doesn't happen often.
No.
So if you don't mind, I
Yeah.
think for all of our listeners and obviously the Team Proven community in general, we'd love to get to know your athletes a little bit more. Start from wherever you'd want. I know you got a teen athlete that's going to be competing at the games. You've got some semifinal level athletes.
Yeah.
If you want to just give us a breakdown and kind of what their seasons look like this year and kind of the outlook looking forward, I think it's really exciting. We get to add these new athletes to our team.
Yeah.
And obviously they'll be coming in and out of HQ as well, which we're excited about. And with how many coaches we have, it'll be really fun to see where we can kind of fit people in.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, so I coach 13 athletes total individually of kind of varying ages and ability levels. This year, the easiest way to describe it is, 4 of my athletes are going to be competing at the games. So I have Kyra Milligan, Gracie Walton, Luka Jukic, and Bailey Martin. So for Bailey, this will be our second year together at the games. Kyra was there on a team last year. Gracie will be a rookie. Luka's kind of making a comeback after a couple years away from having made it for the first time. And then I have a teen athlete, Kendall Gilmore, who's Vegas born and raised. And so when I moved to Vegas, she was actually the first athlete I coached there. So I've coached her since she was 15, seen her kind of go up through the teen ranks, made a semifinal for the first time this year as an adult as well. So it's a really cool ascension for her. And then, I'm really lucky, like of the 6 athletes that I have in Vegas, 4 of them, I think, are 21 years or younger. Cool. So I have a really cool developmental group A couple of them that like one made a semifinal last year, one was right knocking on the door. They went team together this year. Unfortunately, just missed out on making the games, but like such good experience for them. And then a few other individuals that are, some semifinals level, some trying to get to that place, or more kind of local comp and above type of athletes. But everybody that's trying to compete on a higher level, and it's been nice because it kind of creates a good community amongst them where they all understand that everybody's doing it for the same reason. And I think it's really hard to find that as a coach, where you have athletes that are competing against each other but also really supportive of what each other's doing. And I've been lucky that Ali Weiss and Kiefer are kind of the older of the two, and they've been really good mentors for the next couple girls that are training out of Vegas with me. Luca's really experienced, Bailey's very autonomous and experienced. So yeah, I'm lucky. I got a lot going on, but I'm really lucky with the group I have.
Yeah, that's so you have, just to break it down, how many people in person?
I think six. And then, CJ Gerald's in Arizona, so he's only a few hour drive away, so I'd consider him like hybrid in person.
He comes and visits every now and then, doesn't he?
He'll come to visit. He was there a ton this year because he was on the team with Mitch McClune and a couple of the girls. He does likes to do a lot of off-season competing, and his plan is to go back to individual this year. So, yeah.
Cool.
And then are you going to, obviously, the teen games?
Yeah.
Pit throwdown.
Yep.
Pit teen throwdown. Cool.
That's in Michigan.
Yeah, I think
How
it's
far from your house?
Hour? I know most of those people. It's a good event. It's been going on forever.
Are you from Michigan?
Am I from Michigan? No, I'm from Maine.
They, for some reason, think that everyone's from Michigan.
He clearly didn't read my CV. When I came.
Oh, do you put in where you're born and everything?
I didn't put in a CV at all.
You can see the DMs if you want. But yeah, I think the cool thing is now, and for you, I think that we've talked about at length, is that our Australian contingent is massively growing. We now have Bailey, Maddie, Jay, Gracie,
Zane,
Peter,
Zane as well, yeah,
and then
Isaac.
Yeah.
I think that's close to more than half of the top 10s on each side, which is really cool. Has that been something that you've been excited about in this last year?
Yeah, I think it's awesome to see that when Tia and I obviously left Australia, we had originally never anticipated and planned to be where we are today, right? Obviously expanding and Prvn being a thing. But it's awesome to know that back home people are paying attention and are very appreciative or working with us and wanting to be a part of our team. So that's humbling to know. After this year, and obviously your impact or you being there in person and seeing how rich the CrossFit community is and how much they thrive for an event like this, I know we want to double down now and strengthen our relationships down there, and then that's something we're working on in the off season and being more involved. But really, it's just, I think it's what's more flattering or more humbling to know is just how far of a reach globally that we can have. Even in Asia, some of those events there that we could have people representing us or being a part of that, and you can see our apparel being used there or reaching out in some of our semifinals track, that even in Africa and all that stuff really gets me wow, man, what we're doing here is actually global.
And it's so tough to know from an outside perspective because each continent and each area can be very isolated in itself.
Yeah.
Language barriers, time zones, all of this stuff, but then you go there and you're like, oh, this is really popular here.
Yeah.
The sport and the brands and the brand association, there's almost, for a lot of people globally, there's more pride in the brands they're with than sometimes we see in the U.S., I feel like.
Well, I said this to a bunch of people, is Torian felt like it was a MLB or NBA game here, to where you would take your family. It was an experience that you would go do, rather than in the U.S. it feels a little bit unless you know somebody competing, or if you're going to see Tia at Syndicate, you don't really know about the event at all.
Yeah.
Because there's so many big events happening at the same time in America.
Yeah, Mike and John do a good job of mid-game entertainment, right? They had some island dances throughout. They had some special guest appearances in terms of specialty events, shooting shirts in the crowd and stuff like that, and fire, flames. So they're doing a cool job of keeping us engaged and keeping us in the seats to stay there. So that's really cool to see.
Yeah, I saw a man getting tattooed there. Multiple men getting tattooed by hand.
Islander style, yeah.
Yeah, with a needle.
Real tattoos?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
and
it's
people
a
have
stick
to
and a nail, and they're just
That'll be me next year. send me out there, and guys be like,
Get
"Where's
your other
Kiefer? He's
arm."
supposed to be in the back." Be like, I'm busy.
Warm up area is just empty. He's getting held down back there. So he's never been. As
Oh,
many
to Australia?
Because it's
Aussie
always on the
athletes
same
that he
week
has.
as the West Coast
And
athletes.
that's
But you've
fair,
never
yeah.
been there in general.
I've never been to Australia.
Yeah,
that's
never
far.
been to an event.
Some people think it's fake down there. It doesn't even exist. So
My
you
goal
told
was to
me-
try to get there for Down Under because I feel like
yeah.
they're forever going to put Torian on the same week as when I have to compete with athletes in the U.S.
And you got to make a choice.
If I want a place to live, there is no choice to make.
yeah,
Well, people might not know that, so let's
Sure.
go back. Kyra is your girlfriend.
Yep.
You guys have been together a couple years now, right?
Yeah. Give or take.
Give or take. Yeah. Sorry, I won't put you on the
No,
spot
it's
there.
okay.
Don't worry.
Well, if we don't know what an anniversary is, and there is no anniversary to celebrate, and it's just less logistics,
Yep.
Don't listen, Kyra.
Facts. Yeah. So you guys, how is that relationship been? You're in a room with
Yeah, how does that work?
two other guys that have been the exact same position. So it'd be interesting to hear how you guys have navigated all of that.
As much as I would want to joke about it, honestly, I've been very lucky with the way it goes. I think she has a ton of respect for what I do for her and a lot of trust in what we do. And so even if there are times that we disagree about things or we have an argument about it, at the end of the day, like, she's able to snap back and I'm able to snap back to like, all right, this is coach-client relationship. And then when training is over, we go to personal relationship. And it's,
Yep.
It took us a while to kind of figure it out because I think that there was maybe an expectation from her part that she should be treated differently in the gym because I'm her partner.
Mm-hmm.
And I almost overcorrected to a point where I was like, well, I don't want to give you too much attention in the gym, so I'm just not going to give you attention and I'll coach everybody else. And so we've worked our way back, but I don't know, how do you make it work?
So I think we're more different because I think we've been doing like some form of like coach-athlete relationship longer or just as long as we've been dating.
Yeah.
So like even when we first met, I had some form of impact on her track and field, like just even holding a stopwatch. So it's been ingrained in our relationship from day one, really. But I'm similar. Like I know that when we got a full house in here, that I want to make sure that my attention is divided evenly and equally, so that I'm not just all hanging out with Tia and just doing that. Like later now in the games prep, sure, like because we've like identified that and like, hey, the guys, this is what the expectation is. This is what's going to happen. But when we're in open prep and in semi-finals prep, I want to make sure that we're actually dividing our time with our athletes and spending, some good touch points. And that was hard to navigate when we started, firstly, because we had so many different athletes. And I knew Tia knew all the stuff that I was going to say anyway, so she didn't have to be involved. But then at the same time, it's important for her to hear it again and again, but I wasn't available for it. So I saw that a decline in some of the movements or some of the attention to detail when I had stepped away momentarily for it. And I'd reined it pretty much back in pretty quick after like identifying that. But it is a balance. Like you need to make sure that obviously there's a relationship side and there's a performance side, and you need to know where you are in time and space. And meaning like if I'm in the gym, you got to understand which hat I'm wearing right now, and then when we leave, this is the hat I'm wearing right now, and they bleed into both.
Yeah.
Because we talk about home stuff when we're at the gym, and we talk about training stuff when we're at home. So like there isn't a perfect balance, but you need to at least understand and differentiate those two when you can.
Yeah, for sure.
When you guys met, were you her coach first?
No, so she moved to Vegas a couple months before me. And when I moved to Vegas, I was very much coming in as an assistant coach role without any athletes on my roster that were in the gym. And so, there were a host of Underdogs athletes. I was there to help Johnston support the athletes any way I could. And then there were just natural progressions of relationships that developed to a place where it's like, okay, this is a good fit for me to take over programming here versus these are good fits for Johnston to maintain programming. And so Cairo was one of those athletes. It was just a good timing thing of like, Alex and Danielle and some other people had made the games. There's during games prep, there's a lot of attention there. Cairo was training for other things, and it was just a good avenue for us to break off that way.
So that happened. Then the year after was that Mayhem year when she went team.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So
but you were still coaching her at that point, like individually.
Yep. I still coached her individually. In the beginning, she was just making trips down for the open and quarterfinals to meet the requirements for that. And then, when she went down for the whole summer for training, I spent most of the time there with her. but more just kind of in a supportive role, trying to, let the Mayhem team do what they wanted to do with things. I would build some things around it for her individually and help the team if they wanted, but mostly trying to be respectful of their space. And so it was a good opportunity for me to learn more about what other people were doing. But it was also tough to be hands off in that, because you look at things like, hey, like I really still want to work on this, but the team priority has to come first for the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then she obviously made it this year for the first time, rookie season coming up. Were there many changes that you had to make after she went team, or was it pretty much the same plan that you guys had always, hey, I'm going to go individual eventually. I want to work on X, Y, and Z. This team thing will probably help me grow mentally and from a professional standpoint, but was the plan really always to be in where she is now?
Yeah, I think her intention has always been to be able to compete at the games as an individual. And I think last year we both recognized that, it was something that she could achieve, but she was more than a year away from it. That was not going to be a year where she was going to come back ready to be that athlete. And so competing on a team gave her an opportunity to get games experience, to train around. Yeah.
Yep.
I think a ton. I think the biggest pieces were what it changed in her mentally in terms of what she's capable of, but also both because, every camp has a different style of what they like to prioritize, right? But also the type of programming that's biased in semifinals and the type of stuff that's biased in the games are very different. So her going through a summer of games prep with another camp that has a different outlook on things, I think forced her to face a lot of weaknesses in a way that she didn't want to. Or when you're training alone, it's really easy to be like, okay, this is my best effort. But when you're doing it for other people, your best effort is not enough a lot of times. And so that both helped her there and then got her even more excited to compete individually. So after the games, I think she took like 4 days off and got back to training because she wanted to do Rogue qualifiers. Qualified for Rogue, got to compete there, got an invite to Dubai, had an opportunity to compete there. And by the time that ended, I think that the athlete that came out of it was like a 4-year expedited athlete from the person that was before that Mayhem season.
Yeah, I think it's a big equalizer, right? Obviously, I'm coming from the team side of things, and I've been able to see some individuals get plugged here and there, and they may not be the best fits as far as elevating a team to its optimal level. But I think on the other side, like you said, for individuals to come back, like from an anaerobic standpoint and from just a pure effort standpoint, I've always seen it work. I think some of our athletes could benefit from sure. I know we haven't done a lot of team stuff here, but I know some of your athletes as well may be looking for that in the future. So we're excited to kind of dig into that too.
Yeah. I mean, I had encouraged, two of the athletes I work with, Ava and Carson, are both 21 years old, both really talented, both could probably have made a semifinal individually this year again. But the conversation was like, hey, we can get to a semifinal maybe, depending on how the workouts come out and how it all goes, and you can gain experience there. Or we can go team for a season. You're still training for the same long-term goals, and you can have an opportunity to compete for a game spot maybe. And the time that you're spending is so much less stressful, because I feel like for any athlete that's on the fringe of that, like the quarterfinals time of the year is probably the least fun time that they ever spend in training, because they put so much pressure on themselves to perform at this exact time. Their weaknesses are exposed to the max, and if it doesn't go the way you want, you feel like your year's a failure, and you spend 6 months trying to rally, or also trying to kind of like pick yourself up off of this disappointment. And I just think that team is such a good way to sort of press pause on expectation and keep a longer term outlook on getting better. Because, the reality is most of these athletes, if you ask them, they're not trying to make the games once just to like achieve it. They want to be a year after year competitor. And just like an Olympian would or anybody else would, like, you have to keep a long-term perspective on that. But if you're always competing now, it's impossible to keep that perspective because you're too worried about how your ego feels about how you'll compete tomorrow.
And experience too, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't simulate the high level of the games, even if it's in teams or semifinals for that matter. If you're not getting there, you don't know what it physically feels like. So once you finally break through the semifinals or the games, you just feel like it's a whole new learning curve again. So you're not actually prepared.
Yeah.
So to that point, I would ask you, because I think it'd be a fresh perspective, do you think teenagers coming into the new division would benefit from doing that early on?
Yeah, I think we've seen it. Like Jay's a mold for that. And I know there's many other athletes that have gone teen games, team, then individual. I think it is a great progression or stepping stone. And I know that there's a lot of benefit, and you just spoke about it as well. So I can see that completely. I think that sometimes, though, athletes a very high level in team have capabilities of making it individually, but they get stuck in the trap of like being in a team, or they feel that they owe it to each other to stay bonded together, which is awesome, but it also derails what their original objective was when they early set on to being in team. So that's very unlikely, but I think, yes, to answer the question, I think teen then into team is a great pivot point to get them back to individual.
It avoids this kind of the awkward stage of progression where immediately you could go from being at the top of the sport as a teen to falling off the map for a year or two. And from the public perception, it's like, oh, this person is failing now. The reality is like it's just a transition period. Like you went from being the king in high school to going to college, and you're a freshman now again. And so it allows you to kind of comfortably compete at a high level a little bit longer, so that when you do reemerge, the expectation's a little different. You're prepared for what's coming. And
it's good. You get surrounded with like mature men and women.
Yeah.
And they're showing you the ropes, and that's actually forcing them to be in some form of, like looking up them as a mentor role as well. So I think it's great. I think they're conversations to have. My only thing is with the team format is, I don't know, I'm always skeptical on like what it will look like. I always feel that it's always going to change, and it's like it's hard to invest 4 people to do something when you're uncertain if the season's going to go ahead, and there's only ever 1 or 2 competitions. That's semifinals and the games, and then for the rest of the year
you have to be an individual again.
They're the things that I think are like not cons, but like things to really navigate throughout the season.
So when we look forward to the season, like you've been with us for, it's officially a week now, and I think you've been probably put your head underwater real quick to learn as much as you can and fire hose everything, which like that's the way we operate. I think that's the way that things can be done in a really good way to get you up to speed. But like, what's been the biggest thing that you've enjoyed so far working with Shane a little bit more behind the curtain?
Okay, mate. Here we go.
All right, secrets time. No, honestly, like my nature is very much to observe and absorb things as much as I can. And so I'm still in that phase, but it's really easy as a coach, especially in a sport that doesn't have a lot of history and a lot of data to go with it, and you really can't because things change so much, to get siloed in your thoughts on, how to program, how to approach things. And so while I have 1,000,001 ideas, I spend almost every day being like, was this a good idea? Was this a bad idea? So a lot of it is being able to watch another coach who's had success to either say like, oh, this is reaffirming of how we approach something, or say, oh, that's a really nice way for me to be able to integrate this thing I was having a hard time with. And so from that perspective, it's been really fun. And I think the other thing is just like, this is no secret, but a reminder of how important attention to details are. Like it's the little details, not even just from a technique or a programming perspective, but like how we approach the day, how we approach cleanliness of the gym, the fact that the dumbbells all have to be facing the same way with the numbers on the right side of it, and just little things that, especially as somebody who works with so many young athletes, I think are really good reminders and good habits to build in immediately. And so those are like, aside from just being really grateful to be with the team and meeting everybody and people being so receiving of me being here, those are the things that I constantly am picking up on.
Yeah, I think we've seen a big change in even our athletes this year when it comes to that, because now obviously with our own facility, and we've seen growth in people that I don't think they notice is happening. But if you would have asked them a year ago, like, put everything in one little line like this and pay attention to this detail and that detail, it bleeds into their life too, which is really cool. And I think that's the most exciting thing with new athletes joining us. Obviously, from a coach's standpoint, we have an infrastructure now to handle all these athletes, but we want to help them elevate their career more than just working out, right, and training. And I think that was a great conversation we had. And we've talked to all your athletes, and we've had our welcome calls and everything. I think the number one thing that we keep seeing over and over again is like, hey, I want to do this full time. I want to be a professional athlete. Can you help me with this? And I think that's the coolest thing that we're putting together here, because we've talked about it many times on the other podcasts. We just have the facilitation now to be able to do that. So we're excited for these young athletes to hopefully in a year from now, they're starting to make better paychecks, and they're starting to get an ability to train more, no matter what that might look like. So that's been cool. And I think for Shane and myself as well, it's been cool to see your initiative when it comes to wanting to learn, because Shane's a big one in this, and he's taught me a lot, just learning from different people, whether it's CrossFit or not. And I know you spent a lot of time with Olympic coaches, and we had a great chat yesterday about just implementing new things. They may not always work, but at least you have data then at that point.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
He gets awkward in these situations.
I think but I think it is refreshing to see like new eyes, to see what we do differently. I think we just get so not mundane, but like just caught in the trenches of what we do and what we think is just the right path, or what we perceive as like this is the right trajectory of what we're trying to achieve. But I think you're right, like attention to detail or intention with every decision that we make. Like I always think that if the athlete has a question, and I wish they do, like I wish they ask more, I should have the answer for it if I program something. Or if I ask for a dumbbell to be placed this particular way, it's just attention to detail to see if when Dave says, hey, this is the boundary, don't step over the line, so to speak, then we clearly understand what is in and what is out of play, so that the athlete just has that concept of like understanding three-dimensionally of what's expected from them. And I think character is a big thing too, right? Like the way that you look after your own equipment and your gear, or the things that within that other space there, or in the affiliate or wherever, really, if they're looking after that or they're taking care of that, they have a sense of pride, a sense of appreciation for it too. And they're the characteristics that I think beyond this world of CrossFit, when the dust settles, I hope that some of those lessons are instilled. Like it's
everybody has OCD at the end of it.
Yeah, but but the amount of members or the people that have stopped in, or like some of the media guys have come in and they see a Tia sweeping or vacuuming or mopping, or seeing Taylor like picking up after somebody else, or like even Sid Wells or Sid M like mopping in the corner of like after their mess. People are like shocked by it. But I love to think that those athletes are just taking care of pride of what we're trying to do here, right? And it's like the All Blacks, the rugby team, like they sweep the sheds afterwards, or it's like the Japanese rugby team, or rugby fans, they will clean the bleachers themselves, and they'll pick up the rubbish, because it's a sense of like how they want to be representation of what they are and who they are as people on and off the field. So I think they're big characteristics, things that we look for as well.
Yeah, and I think that's cool, is the younger the athlete gets in this sport, the more chance we have to kind of implement that. I know when we started a few years ago, we didn't work with a lot of young athletes, and it gets tougher the older they get to kind of do those things. But like for you, you're molding, like I don't want to call them kids, but really like in the scope of sport, you would know better than anyone, yes. But that's what they are. And they've got the ability to change like their whole way they think about life, which is awesome. So I think that's something where we've got, I think like 10 plus athletes that'll be competing. At the age group is obviously there, but the teen games too, to where I think it's cool this year that they have their own event. I think it's a good opportunity to
same weekend though, right? Yeah, that's the hard.
Yeah, we won't touch on that.
Okay.
That call by, not us.
It's just. I mean, like, fortunately, right, we've got amount of coaches that we can separate or divide that.
It's very hard though.
But I think we could talk about that post-season. But it is just hard to navigate, and I know there's a mother and daughter that have made the games, right? That what do they do? Ooh.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Coach Joey had somebody, or maybe it was David, that his older athlete basically said, go play, go get the teen ready. You don't need to worry about me. And that's obviously
they're the future.
Yeah, which is great. And that's how usually the upper age group masters are anyways. But they do deserve the attention. They did qualify, and I think it's going to be something that thankfully we're in a position where we've got 9 coaches now that can all go to different events, and hopefully that helps us a lot in the future. But yeah, it'll be fun. I think if you want to give us like a little bit of an outlook of what the next, what do we have, 6 weeks left? 6 weeks. What does that look like for your games athletes? So the 4 that will be competing, obviously. Here we're going to have Jay, Maddie, Tia, Peter's going to be over here, and then you'll have a little proving camp out west.
Yeah. I mean, so actually Gracie gets in, I don't know when this is coming out, but Gracie gets into town July 1st, and then Bailey comes about a week later. Luke is going to stay home. He has a great opportunity there to still train alongside Lazar while doing their own stuff, and it's just like a good, comfortable, competitive environment for them.
And it's warm there too, right? It's not like it's cold,
It's hot there. Like his ability to get massage and body work is much better and cheaper there than it would be if he came to the States. So he's going to stay there, and we'll stay remote. But with the other 3, like the other 3 and Kendall as a teen athlete, I will have them doing a lot of stuff together, just being able to start to get outside of the box a little bit more. I think, each of them has CrossFit related things that we want to double down on. But when it comes to the games type intangibles, that's stuff they can all do together. And so it's a nice way to kind of balance the individual feel versus the sort of team bonding of suffering on some of that stuff.
Yeah. So how early will you need to get outside the gym? Like if the heat?
Depends how tough I want to make them mentally. No,
midday.
Honestly, right now in Vegas, usually we try to, if we're doing stuff outside that's running related or on a field or a track, try to get there 7:30.
It's crazy.
And you got about an hour of quality work, and then it starts to be tough. And that's with knowing that that's probably a 3 to 4 hour break in the day after before a quality second session.
Yeah,
so
yeah. And that's good because Madison in the past, there's been early check-ins of that time as well. So that's a great simulation of what you could expect too.
Yeah. And I think, I talked about this with somebody the other day, but and I would love to hear your thoughts on this, but I assume you feel similarly. It's there are a lot of things we've been doing that have obviously been working well for people's fitness and their confidence. And so right now is almost more a time of figuring out what's going to make them feel the most confident, right? What things do you want to double down on? I'm going to make sure that I add in the pieces that I think that we need to add. But from a fitness standpoint, it's they're already fit. They got to this stage. What do you feel like you need a couple extra touches to get that extra edge on your competitors or to build the confidence for yourself? And I think that within a 6-week window when, massive training adaptations are maybe minimal, that's the best thing we can do, because I think that confident athletes are the most dangerous ones when it comes to the games.
Yeah. So I think we're still in build phase for us, really adding in more layers, and then until the last month out, so another week and a half of what we're doing. Obviously with a deload in the middle there, and then we'll start sharpening the sword, so to speak, and then really building the confidence and just working on sports-specific transitions, touch points on dismounts, mounts on bikes even to that small degree. And just a plethora of those things within the detail. But yeah, exactly right. Confidence is the big thing, right? And we've said it many times before, and I'm sure Tia has as well. She's said that in past, there's people stronger than her, there's people faster than her, there's people that are more aerobically than her, there's people that are better gymnastics than her, and some of them have more of those skills all intertwined together, but the separator for that weekend is just mental, and then that's what puts your shoulders and head above the rest. So that's a big element there, and that's where it comes to confidence and making sure that they go in there prepared physically, but also mentally understanding what they're capable of and that they want to be in a position to attack all weekend.
Is there a big difference between the way that you approach prep for Tia versus somebody like Jay and Maddie?
Yeah, there is. It's more touch points and then speaking through what we're chasing for, and then getting them to believe in themselves more. But with and that's with many athletes. With Tia, it's more so still pushing her to not to humble her, but to get more adaptation out of it as long as we can. Just knowing her as a person, she doesn't want it easy. She wants to grind up until she doesn't have to. But for the other athletes, especially if it's their first or second time, I really want them to feel the confidence, understand that, hey, you're well prepared. All I want to do now is just maintain your strength, and then just sharpen up other aspects, your transitions, work on intensity, nutrition being a big thing, recovery up to this point, quality of sleep, especially if they travel over this way, and just allowing them to be more in a relaxed state rather than tense, getting caught up in the social media of the new ranking systems and how that all can play into a role. And then also layering in conversations and just talking to them through those scenarios of events. I know when Jay and Maddie get here, I do want to do a video breakout session where we just go through their past performances at semi-finals, because I haven't actually got to sit down and physically walk them through that. I want to do that as soon as we can so that we can apply some of the changes, just body language stuff. When I've watched them compete at the 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. in the morning, I'm sure you feel the same.
Yep.
I just want to make sure that, hey, look, this is what I recognize in the thick of it, the heat of it, and these are things that I think we can correct that. Body language is huge for me. That's how I know the big telltale of how they feel in a workout. They could tell me they felt great, or they could say they crush it because of the placing, but their body language throughout the workout really is a true indicator of how they felt, in my eyes anyway. So if I see them slouched over, if I see them resting sporadically or inconsistent throughout a workout, meaning they didn't have control, I want to like just ask them or pick their brain of like what happened here, like what were you thinking through this moment, so that we can then identify it and then make some good changes for that. I think it's imperative to have those conversations, just like every other professional sport, right? They'll sit down and they'll have videos and playbacks. Fortunately for a lot of our guys, they were sort of front and center in the video, so we can see that pretty clearly. I know I want to speak to our guys about nutrition and understanding that the CrossFit Games demands a lot more from you. Even mentally, you're burning a lot of energy, right? So calorie intake there. So being conscious of those things over a week can be quite demanding.
Yeah. I feel like one of the things that I have notes of trying to address more, and I had a conversation with Kiefer about this even the other day, less for Luca and maybe for Bailey, but more for Gracie and Kiefer, is like, yes, you're a rookie. Yes, like, it's amazing that you qualified and it's great to have that first experience, but like, I don't want a mindset of, I'm there to have fun this year. Yeah. I'm there just like, it's a throwaway year for me to learn and get better. It's like, no, we're here to compete. Like, you earned this because of how good of a competitor you are. We now need to go into this with the expectation that you already proved you can compete with these people, and that's what we're here to do, because I feel like that's a huge difference between a 30th place finish and a 20th place finish for a young athlete at the games.
Yeah, and I think I look at it from there's many athletes go in there for different reasons, right? But if you look at the greats of any sport, if you look at the best athletes in any sport, the word fun doesn't come up too much, right? Like, they talk about how disciplined they have to be, how much of a lifestyle it is, how much, I don't like the word sacrifice, but you hear about sacrifice and hard training, the demand it is on family and toll and all that. You hear about those lessons, so you know that it's a lot of work. But I understand that then there's other athletes what are making it for the first time, and that's, in their mind, what they enjoy is the fun aspect. So I think that's what you need to navigate depending on the athlete. But I agree with you too. Like, there's a crossroad of, like, if you want to break into that upper threshold of athletes, sometimes fun has to take a back seat because you need to outwork those guys.
Yep. Yeah, like, I want them to go in and compete freely. And in that sense, it's like, all right, there's not the same expectation on the rookie as there is on somebody coming back year after year, but I want it competing freely and aggressively, not freely in like a frivolous way of this doesn't mean as much as it will in the future. Because I just think that sets up so much for what their mindset will be the next year. I think it's too easy in a competition. You see this at like local comps where, if you realize you're not going to win the comp anymore, you kind of take your foot off the gas, like, oh, like, I've changed expectation now. If you finish at the games in 27th, and it could have been a 24th if you attacked the last couple of workouts differently, like, that will change how you perceive yourself for the next year. It will change the way you address everything else. And so that's a big piece of, like, I think that all of the athletes I have going, all the athletes we have going, have opportunities to have major impacts at the games, but I think that mental piece will make a huge difference for a lot of the younger ones.
Yeah, for sure.
I think if you'd ask Jay, that's exactly how last year went for him. Like, he's been to the games many times, but he'll openly say, hey, I was just kind of there to be there, and I never felt like I was prepared enough to even expect myself to do as well as I could do. Where last year he went in there, he was free. He competed free. There was obviously moments where all of a sudden he was in the top 10 where he may have got a little nervous, but throughout the week he put together a great show, and I think over the past 12 months now, that's pushed him into a realm that he didn't know was possible.
He sees himself differently. Yeah.
And I think Bailey kind of fell into that boat, I would think so.
Bailey's a strange character. And anyway, but like, I think I went into last year with Bailey because we'd been working together for a while, but I didn't know him personally. Like, we hadn't spent a lot of time together. And I went in thinking more of like, he finally got over the hump. He made it out of Torian. He made the games. He's been wanting to get back since he was a teen. And I thought of it more like his expectation was, I'm going to go here and see where I'm at. His expectation was that he was going to be a top 10 guy. And he spent most of the weekend in that spot and finished, damn near there. But I think he right away, he was like, no, I'm not here for any sort of reason other than to keep up with the top guys. Every event we talk strategy, he's like, yeah, I'm going to go with the front group. He's like, I'm just going to go and I think I can hold on to it. And that's the kind of like attack mode that I want people to adopt, because I think it sets you up for success way more.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're feeling pretty good about ourselves and our athletes right now. But yeah, I think it's great to get to know you more. Like, obviously we know you, but have all of our listeners and all of the people that subscribe get to know you as a coach a little bit better. I think we've got those guys coming in the next week or so. You've got your camp coming up, really cool stuff happening. Anything else before we wrap this thing up?
No, I don't think so.
Well, you come see us at the games.
Yep.
Yeah, if we haven't announced that on the podcast yet, we will be there again as a partner, which is going to be awesome. We've got a really cool opportunity where we're going to be doing an Echo Bike Challenge with Taylor and Tim.
Oh, Shane's not going to be the time to beat?
He didn't want people to feel bad.
We're going to have a lot of people winning.
We didn't want to give away
It's participation trophy.
Yeah, I think that's awesome episode. Really excited to have you on the team. Really excited to have you on the podcast more, which will be good. And then we'll see you guys all, I almost said Madison, in Fort Worth.
Do we do finger guns at the end or anything?
Is that, we always do this.
Oh. All right.
Cut.
Perfect.